listening to First Contact, Stories of the Call Center, a podcast brought to you by NobelBiz, your all-in-one contact center solution. Every month, our host, Christian Montez, talks to tech leaders and entrepreneurs who found their way into the contact center industry.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of First Contact Stories of the Call Center. This is episode 3 of season 3. We're super excited for today because we have a veteran from the contact center industry, an expert in training, a CEO, an author, and even a podcaster. Okay, let me take a break because that was a lot. And I should have gotten some water, Michael. But look, we're bringing on the person that you know as the contact center coach, Michael Tamer. Now, for those of you who don't know Michael, let's kind of go through some of his background, right? High level, 40 years plus of industry experience, was a visionary at the forefront of the contact center quality monitoring software development, which is crazy to think that you were part of that. And then on top of that, you look at that and you worked your way up as really becoming one of the most influential voices in the contact center space. And then to finalize that piece of it, you've been teaching benefits of quality to organizations all over the world, including to the US Senate. So Michael even has authored books, 4-Minute Customer for Call Centers and 52 Things to Know, Parenting of Teenagers. And lastly, before I take a quick break and a breath, he's currently the CEO of Proponisi, a company that provides winning products and services for contact centers. All right, Michael, thanks so much for joining. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here.
Very excited to have you. And if you know the theme of the show, one of the things we love to start with is how did you even get in the call center space? We always talk about not everyone wakes up and they said, I'm going to work in this space. That's my dream job. But for many of us, it ends up being a dream job, not only for our career or a portion of our career. So how did you get into the space in the first place?
You know what, so first off, I've been in the contact center industry since, before dinosaurs roamed the earth. And I came in from through the technology window. And way back, I started with a company called DataPoint Corporation, which was in the business of building automatic call distributors. Thank you for holding all our agents are busy. And I literally, my very first job was working and selling technology into the financial district in Manhattan. So, and the platform itself was designed to help drive the thing that was their advantage was they were really great at reporting, which means they were focused on the performance of the agents and the supervisors. So from the very beginning, I was just very focused on that. So that's how I got into the industry.
So it's always interesting that, sometimes people come from the inside, right? Where they've worked in their first jobs as a call center agent, they move into supervision, or they, have family businesses or other ways. But you come from the tech side, and coming from the tech side, obviously now being the CEO of your own company in this space from the tech side of it, tell us a little bit more about the company. And I also understand there's some story or background in regards to what the name means.
Yeah. So I think that when you look at contact centers, I think it was former President Clinton made that comment of, it's the economy, stupid. If you remember that from way back. In the contact center industry, it's really the people, stupid, in the sense that it's the people that are answering the phone, and of course it's the transaction that they have with the end client, whoever the person is that's talking. So it's always been about the people. And so, my perspective on the industry has always been through this lens of the people. And so Proponisi, it's the Greek word, it means coaching. And I started as history, like you said before, I was in the automatic call distribution business, and then our company built the original platform for quality monitoring. I was actually literally in the FCC meeting where they approved your call may be monitored for quality purposes. And so we sold that company literally at the turn of the century. And so I decided I wanted to, took some time off. I wrote a book called The 4-Minute Customer. And then I decided that, that I wanted to go back into work. And I thought that there was an opportunity between the frontline agent and the supervisor that was a gap that I thought could be filled. And so I hired some of my former customers And we went out and started doing consulting and training and roadmaps in this area of trying to work in this area between the supervisor and frontline agent, and figured out pretty quickly as I was doing it that everybody was looking for ways to reduce cost. I mean, it's the biggest challenge you've got, right? How much can I automate? How much can I turn off? And so you ended up with two different types of people, two different types of companies. There was the type of company that was looking to do everything in their power to keep their customer away from a person. And then the other part was they're kind of doing everything in their power to try to make the most of their employees and the most of their transactions. They were still using the technology, but there was a avoid versus engage. And so I also learned that I really kind of hated consulting. I wasn't very good at it. I just didn't like it. I was a software guy at heart. And so I recognized that customer experience, the measurement of customer experience, was a way to reduce costs, because if I could figure out what it was the customer wanted and really understood what the customer wanted, I could train the employees better to answer those, or B, we could offload them and use technology to obviously avoid calls if that was possible. So I built some technology, which is what Proponacy, the core Proponacy, is today, which is a little bit like a Reese's peanut butter cup. A little bit of chocolate, which is measurement of customer experience, and then a little bit of peanut butter, which is this relationship between the frontline agent and the supervisor. And so when I merge these two together, you end up with kind of the cornerstone of what we do, which is we connect, we encourage, and we build and learn. So connection is everything and anything we can do to connect the employee to their peers, to their supervisor, and to the company. And the encouragement is that we're looking for different ways that we can encourage the frontline employee to continue to one, to show up to work, two, to pay attention while they're at work, and three, to excel at work. And in many different creative ways as we can, not necessarily fun, but creative ways, maybe mysterious creative ways, exciting creative ways, ways that they can see their performance. And then finally, we're looking to build and learn, because no one comes into a contact center. Nobody, as you said before, nobody grows up and says, "Hey man, I can't wait till I grow up. I want to be a contact center rep when I grow up," right? I mean, so you've got future marketing people. You may have future customer service people. You may have the president of the United States. You may have actors. I mean, who knows who you've actually got in your contact center? And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to help them build and learn. So we're trying to build their skills and tools so they can do the job that they have. But at the same time, I think the companies are now recognizing that, listen, I'm only going to have these people for a season, whatever that season is, however long that is. And so in that season, I also need to build and help them learn so that they can be ready to go do whatever their next thing is, whether it's inside the company or outside the company. And when you connect and you encourage and you build and learn, we think that's a winning recipe.
That totally makes sense. And when I think of everything you just painted a picture for, it sounds like you're really looking at a holistic approach to contact centers and how they improve versus this is only the one thing that you do. This is the secret sauce and this alone does that. Why is it important that you take such a broad and holistic approach to be able to make that change happen within the contact center?
Well, I think that you have this age-old adage in the contact center, right? That if you think about it, the contact center is designed to create, delight, and retain customers in about half the time it takes to boil an egg. We need to do it hundreds of thousands, millions of times a year with quality, with usually the lowest paid employee in the entire organization, and never know when the customer is going to arrive or when they're going to leave. So it's a really complicated equation. And so when you've got the person and you've got the company, they've got a little bit different perspective, right? So an employee is looking for three things. I mean, I really think at their basic, they're looking for three things. They want to know what their job description is. They want to have the skills and tools necessary to do their job. And they want to have a leader or a manager that has their best interests in mind. And if they can get those three things, then they can excel. The employer's looking for a smart, bright person that's going to stick around. that they can invest in. I mean, one of the tragedies of contact centers have been for years is we have a tendency to treat employees like rental cars, right? We know they're not going to be around very long, so we don't take very good care of them. But the reality is that we need to invest in them because we need them to stick around. So it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. Well, if I invest in them, but they're going to leave, then I'm just wasting money. But if I don't invest in them, they're not going to stick around. So I've got to create an environment that allows them to excel, and people excel when they do things well and when they repeat it well. And so an organization looks at their employees, and we describe it kind of like a garden, right? There's kind of three types of employees in your organization. There's roses, daisies, and weeds, right? So roses is the most beautiful flower there is. White House doesn't have a daffodil garden. It's got a rose garden, but roses are tough to grow, right? They're really tough to grow. Well, the roses in our contact center are the people that they set the standards. They're the ones that set the targets. They're the ones that have the best responses. If you've got a problem in your organization, you give it to a rose. Right. Well, the issue is we have a tendency to reward roses, best this, best that. What a contact center needs to do is it needs to challenge roses. Roses are the ones that you challenge. They're the ones that are going to set the standards for you. And they represent about 20% of your organization. Then you've got this middle section, which is the daisies. And daisies is a beautiful flower, but it doesn't require a lot of fertilizer. It just kind of grows. Well, daisies represent 60% of your organization, and they're that average employee that they sit in the middle. And we have a tendency with daisies to ignore them. And the reason we ignore the daisies is because we're spending so much time focused on the roses and the weeds that we miss these daisies. And I promise you, never once in a contact center has the contact center leadership gotten in kind of a flying duck V, walk through the center, kind of a dun 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 dun. They pause and they take a look and they say, you know what, Sarah, just want you to know the entire senior team's gotten together. We've looked at quality, we've looked at productivity, we've looked at all the numbers, and you're the best average employee that we have. So congratulations, you are average employee of the month. Well done, good job. It doesn't happen. We don't have average employee of the month, but we need to find ways to reward this middle group, the daisies. And then the final group, of course, is the weeds. And, the weeds are our poorest employees. And of course, we're either looking to, give them back to the community if in fact they don't really belong. But what you come to learn in a contact center is that your weeds, right? You make it in a contact center, you're flying, you're doing everything you need to do when your weeds are better than everybody else's roses. When your weeds are successful within the environment that you're in, and if you think about the best, who won the Super Bowl? The Los Angeles Rams, right? Los Angeles Rams just won the Super Bowl. Well, with those 45 players, somebody on the Los Angeles Rams is a weed. They're the worst player on their team. They're still a champion. They're still better than any of us ever could be. But in that environment, they're weeds. So you still need to recognize, you still need to reward, you still need to encourage, you still need to build your weeds along with all the other people that are in your organization. So that was a really long-winded answer, but the concept is that the holistic approach is seeing the value in the frontline rep and the value needed in the organization and merging them together so that everybody wins.
This is James. James is a contact center manager with a passion for philosophy and hiking. As a kid, he made a promise to himself that he would always follow his passion. Today, he ponders on the thought that this promise is probably the best decision he ever made. Today, James loves his job just as much as he loves hiking. So much that he sometimes brings the scent of fresh pine and the tranquility of the mountain streams back to the office with him. With NobelBiz as his company's provider, James found the necessary peace of mind to finally bridge the gap between his passion and his work. By choosing to partner with the promise-keeping voice and software provider of the industry, contact center technical issues, downtime, and poor customer experience are now a thing of the past. In an industry ruled by uncertainty, NobelBiz combines balanced pricing with the highest quality, topped off with outstanding support. But above all, NobelBiz delivers peace of mind to contact center managers and owners. And for the first time, James hit that sweet spot of focus and confidence that is allowing him to take his business to new heights of profitability and success. After all, you know what they say, promises are the uniquely human way of ordering the future. NobelBiz, the promise keepers of the industry.
It makes sense to be able to look at it in pieces, right? And so when we talk about that frontline person through the supervisor, and then you look at the front line and you have all those different categories, you give the analogy of the garden, being able to not look at it as you're worth my time, you're not worth my time. It's how do I spend my time in each group, and what do I get from the time spent in each one of those groups, right? Because if all I do is pull weeds all day, but I never water my roses, my roses are going to die. At the same time, my daisies obviously aren't going to flourish as well. So with that said, let's kind of shift to training and coaching, because you really have a big focus around that piece of it. What is your approach to training and coaching, and why do you feel it's important?
Well, I mean, if you think about the trends of the contact center, everybody keeps talking about the fact that we're going to offload more calls to, 40 years ago, it was, we're going to offload calls to an IVR, and then we were going to do some sort of, self-service, and then the internet was going to take them all on. And now we're in this bot, the bot world, right? And the reality is, I think the number's 30%. I saw an analysis report the other day that says they're going to go to 50% of the calls are going to get offloaded. And we've been stuck at 30% for a really long time. And so as a result of that, what ends up happening is that we keep offloading the simpler calls, but what that leaves is a more difficult call. And it's a more difficult call for two reasons. One, it's a more difficult call because back in the day, and that day was not that long ago, when you picked up the phone to call a company, there was almost 100% chance that the company knew more than you did. Right? Because you had a problem and you needed an answer, and the only way you could get that answer was you'd call the company, and then the person on the other end of the phone knew more than you did, and they would help you through it. Well, today with self-service, you might have a problem that you've been working on for days or weeks or months, and you've done all this research, and the company's got self-help for you, and you've done all these things, and you can't figure out the answer. So now you pick up the phone and you call the company. Well, now the person that's calling knows a heck of a lot more about the problem than the person that's answering the phone. So you've got this uneven position in their ability to be able to answer it. And then who knows how much more frustrated they are. Forget the waiting on hold or, just the frustration they've gone through. So you've just got a much different delivery of the problem or of the challenge or what the issue is. And so, plus a lot more organizations today are using outsourcing versus doing it themselves. So there's a lot more outsourcing going on. So this ability to transfer the information from the company to the frontline person, and then with all the business changes that are occurring, the need for training and ongoing, consistent, repetitive training is just more critical than it's ever been. And I'm sure we're going to get to it, but let's just toss COVID on top of it. And now we've got people that are at home, so we've got even less opportunity to kind of get them together. So training's become mission critical, and so training is I deliver some sort of information to you, but the learning of that information comes through two components. One, it's the repetition and the reinforcement, which reinforcement of training or learning can not only occur in quizzes and tests, but it also occurs in coaching. It also occurs in engagement and gamification and gifts. And there's all sorts of different ways that I can reinforce this information. So training is mission critical. And then the coaching is whether your ratio on a frontline supervisor is 12 to 25 to I've seen 64. So I barely know who the person's name is. My ability to be able to coach a frontline supervisor who's already overwhelmed with all the work they need to do, I need to be able to use, because now my ability to coach you is restricted. Let's say you're at home. Now I can't sit across from you, watch your body language, do all the things I need to do. Now I'm either doing it on a Zoom or I'm trying to do it on a phone call. So I've got to not only be able to connect with you, encourage you, but also I've got to be able to coach you on the areas that are most important to you. So we're trying to make it easier for the frontline supervisor. As an example, if I need to coach you on empathy and I'm sending coaching to you on empathy, well, then I want to send to the supervisor something that explains, how do I coach somebody on empathy? How do I model empathy when I'm having my one-on-ones, I'm having my team meetings or my huddles, whatever it is. So there's this approach to how can I repetitively reinforce over and over and over again the skills and tools that each individual needs, because they're all different. Sally in the contact center may be struggling with empathy. Joe's working on professional etiquette, and Frida's working on listening skills. So every single one of them has a different issue that they're working on. So we have a tendency in a contact center to treat, to say that we were inspired by the diversity, but we have a tendency to treat everybody the same way. And so we're designed to, our tool is designed to allow you to, work with Frida on listening skills, work on empathy, work on professional etiquette based on who the individual is and where they are, whether they're a rose, they're a daisy, or a weed. I'm going to take a breath now. So.
Well, a lot of good information. Definitely have some great clips to share for later on with the audience that wants to take it in bite-sized pieces. But talking about bite-sized pieces, there's something specific around coaching that you've brought up several times in the past, the sandwich approach. Can you kind of give some insight into some examples of how do you apply that and why is it important?
So the sandwich approach came from the concept of the fact that was the way that I realized that I am best encouraged or directed. And so the sandwich approach is pretty simple in the fact that on a day in, day out basis, whether you're a rose, whether you're a daisy or a weed, there are always areas that you can be encouraged on. There's always something that you've done right. Being in the business, we do a lot of work, and you can see it in my podcasts on culture. And one of the key components of a successful culture is finding somebody doing something right. I can always find somebody doing something right, even if they've done a whole bunch. Even if you're a weed, there's something that you're doing right. So the sandwich approach is very basically simply to express in an environment something that they've done well, then express something that they need to work on or need to be redirected on, or they need to be challenged on, and then finish up with something that they've done well. So I can deliver the worst of news, the most difficult news. I can say to you, listen, this week you've really hit your AHT numbers, and I'm so pleased with the performance that you've had this week in particular with your AHT numbers. But as you know, your AHT numbers for the past 3 months have been disastrous. You're at the bottom of the barrel. You're so close to leaving here. You and I both know that if you don't fix this, the only step for you is out. And I know that you want to be here. But the good news is you can still repair it. You still have the capacity to do it. And the area that you're most challenged in is your lack of understanding of shipping, which is greatly increasing your talk time. And so, we've sent you this additional training, and, we're going to focus on this, and we're going to help you to understand this a little bit better so that you can succeed. Well, I've just taken a disastrous, hey, you're about to get fired, and sandwiched it between some encouragement that allows you to be successful. And again, based on the circumstances, you can't do that with everybody all the time, but the concept works. And for people that in today's world don't get to see you at the soda machine, and don't get to have a huddle with you, and don't get to see you smile or those kind of things, and with the limited amount of time that you're getting to spend with people, and probably the critical communication that you've got, sandwich is the best way to make sure that you've got a receptive person at the other end of the phone. Because again, remember, skills and tools, job description, and a person, boss that has my best interest in mind. And when you sandwich, you show that you have their best interest in mind.
So really, that 3-step process has some form of encouragement, some sort of area of opportunity. And then lastly, there's a constructive, positive next step is kind of what I got from that. Does that kind of distill that down?
Yeah, and it's almost encouragement. We've got another process that we do on one-to-one coaching, which is this process called YMCA, right? YMCA, which is a more one-on-one coaching, and in that one, it's the Y stands for your thoughts. If you're in a contact center, again, a cultural thing. If you've got 15 people reporting to you, you can't possibly keep up with them. I mean, it's just impossible to keep up with all of them. So we believe a contact center culture ought to have a your thoughts, right? Which means that the culture is such that when I see you, when you work for me, when I see you, the very first thing you do is you tell me how you're doing. So I don't have to go figure it out. You tell me how you're doing. You tell me what's important to you. So it's your thoughts, then my thoughts, right? Which might be, hey, I think I'm doing wonderful. My thoughts might be, well, I don't think you're doing so wonderful. Then you calibrate, and then you take action. So sandwich is more of a just an ongoing, a shorter coaching environment. And every time I talk to you, I'm coaching, right? Every time I talk to you, I'm on purpose about helping you be successful. I'm trying to connect you, I'm trying to encourage you, and I'm trying to build and learn. And then YMCA would be more of a one-on-one sit down. Let's walk through the components of that. And then of course you would definitely encourage, you definitely challenge, and you would definitely follow up with a plan. And again, roses, daisies, and weeds. We still need to challenge our roses. We need to make sure we're recognizing our daisies, and of course, working through the issues with our weeds as well.
Yeah, and so with that said, I know you had referenced back to data point and that moment in time where you were working with frontline agents, and you mentioned that's really where you had the igniting of passion of helping the frontline agents, improving the relationship between them and the supervisors. What was it about that experience that ignited this passion that you describe? And then also, why was that so important?
There was a report that came out a couple of years ago, and I think I've said it in a podcast somewhere. I think that contact centers were number 3. I think contact centers are considered to be the worst job in the world. And I think that's right after, I think it's janitors and garbage truck people. I mean, we're somewhere in the 3rd or 4th position there. And when it first started, when I first started and I got into the business, it was a pretty simple business. It was get them on the phone, get them off. Just get them on the phone, get them off. And that was even before you could get a bank balance, right? Where you could get an IVR to do a bank balance. I mean, it was just get them on the phone, get them off. And they were just, these people were just miserable. They were tied to their desks. The ability to collect data on them was at a time when nobody had their data being collected on them. But contact centers from the very beginning, we've always had the ability to be able to measure everything that they were doing. And it was just abundantly clear to me that people were spending all their time finding somebody doing something wrong. And then they were being managed by frontline leaders that were given the job because they were the best agent that they had. And so that was the only place for promotion that you could go. I mean, obviously there were some level 2s, and then of course they had a 15-to-1 or 20-to-1 ratio. So any top highfalutin CEO is got 5-6 people working for he or she. And, and they've got all sorts of training. They've probably been to Wharton, and, they're just smarter than all smart, and they've been really trained. Well, now you've got this frontline supervisor that's got very little training, working with these people that are in a miserable job. And I just felt, I felt empathy for them, which ironically is something that you need to be successful in a contact center. And then we at that time had a report that they created, which we called the Iwakatosa report, which was everything you wanted to know in a single report. And I learned very early on that, that you can't measure by averages, right? Because if I have one leg in hot scalding water and the other leg in freezing cold water, on average, the temperature is fine, but I'm in a lot of pain. And it's kind of the same way with contact centers, right? If I take 5 calls at 10 minutes and 5 calls at just cancel them. On average, I've got a call length of 5 minutes, which could be good, which of course it's disastrous. So I just felt like I had some empathy for the frontline and for the supervisors, and just felt like we could make a difference. And at that time, it was making the difference in being able to show them exactly how they were doing, to allow them to say, hey, you know what? I had one really, really long call which screwed up my numbers, and which allowed them to defend themselves. And I just felt like it was that they needed help, and at that time we had something that could help them. And then as time went on, I just, the more time I spent in contact centers, the more I got to meet them, and see people work their way up through organizations. And then, they had so many contact center executives today were on the front line, and it just, I just fell in love with the industry and fell in love with the people.
It's so important that you had mentioned earlier the path, the journey that's frontline representatives and agents make their way into leadership or into management, right? Is sometimes they're just the best performer, and by default, that just means they're going to be good, and vice versa. The idea is purely how fast can I get something done and get it over with and move on to the next thing. Do you feel that the industry is still embracing that approach? And if so, do you see it changing much going forward? And if not, are you seeing a shift? And when do you think you've seen that shift, that it has been changing?
So I'm not sure I know the answer to that as to whether how the industry is responding. I think that I think the industry is in a little bit of an uproar. I think that turnover has always been a problem, right? It's always been the number one problem in contact centers, and but I think that turnover is a little bit even more out of control than it's ever been, and that's because the pool of people has gotten smaller. And whether you want to call it the Great Resignation or whatever it is, but they're struggling to find people. And we had a client. We had a client a couple months ago that did a measurement. It was a center that had 300 people in it. They had 35% turnover. So they're really high turnover. Yeah. But we were able to take a look at it, and some of the programs we put in place, their turnover for their top 100 people was 1%. Their turnover from 200 to 300 was 9%, or from 100 to 200. And then their turnover above the 200, 300 was like 50% or 55. I may be off on the numbers. But the point is that they recognized that holding on to their best employees was the best thing they could do. And so I think that organizations are recognizing that in order to hold on to these employees, I've got to look at them differently, and I have to come alongside them. I can't talk at them. I've got to come alongside them and understand them better and recognize them better. Again, it's just a season. It's just a season. You can't treat an employee like a rental car. And I guess in case you've never treated a rental car poorly, I don't ever wash the rental car. I put I just let the garbage do it. I'm a little fast out of the gates. I'm probably a little hard on the brakes. I just don't treat a rental car the way I treat my own car. And we have a tendency sometimes to think that these guys aren't going to be around, and guys and gals aren't going to be around for a long time, but they are. And so, so I think that you're seeing that. I've got a podcast out there that talks about the things that you need to do to be a great manager. And there's a bunch of different steps. And I say that a manager today needs to have competence. They need to be trustworthy. They need to be focused on others, and they need to bring joy. So when I tell you that you need to bring joy into a contact center, that's my perspective on the way leadership and frontline supervisor managers have to change in an organization. I'll give you a quick adage on this. If you've ever been on a Southwest Airlines airplane, they talk about fun, right? They talk about fun and they're mooing at the front thing. But the reality is, what makes Southwest Airlines so exciting is that you never know what's going to happen. You could open the bin above the bin, and there could be a flight attendant in there, or, they could do a mooing thing, or they could do something funny. You just never know what the mystery is. You never know what's going to happen. You just know that when you're in the environment, something fun could happen. And that fact that something fun could happen creates an environment where people expect it. And so that expectation that something great's going to happen in this culture, that something great's going to happen in this contact center, or something new or something different, or we're going to learn. And if you think about it, when somebody leaves your company, the best you can ever hope for is for them to say, listen, you know what, this place wasn't perfect, but in the time that I was here, I'm better now than I was when I started. I had an opportunity to be really successful. My boss had my best interest in mind, and I met a lot of great people. I mean, if you can get that, you're probably building a culture that will draw more people in and keep people around longer, because I don't care whether you got 100 agents or 1,000 or 10,000 agents. If you could find a way to keep people around for another 6 months, change your life. Change the life of your contact center by keeping you around for just another 6 months. Just do the math. It's unbelievable. So keeping people around and keeping good people, great people around is wildly important. Hopefully I answered your question. I'm not sure I did.
Well, it was great information. And obviously, as part of this great conversation, when we talk about the questions I ask and the great content you're giving back, one of the things that struck me when we keep talking about the frontline teams is, there's this investment, right? This conscious approach that a company actually does to invest in their people. But you've also talked about the frontline team owning their own growth and learning as well. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And is that something that you can teach or influence, or do you just hire the right people to make that happen in your environment?
Well, so the answer to that question is yes, 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 and yes. So first off, it starts with your culture, right? So once I know what my culture is, and that's a whole nother subject on culture, but bringing people into your organization needs to look a lot more like a fraternity or a sorority rush than it is just bringing people on board. A great example of culture. If you're a culture that throws parties for people when they leave, you're completely missing it in the contact center. I need to throw a party when people arrive. When they leave, they've already decided to leave, and they're going to bring other people with them, and everybody else is saying, wow, they're throwing me a party when I leave. I want to throw a party when people come. And it has to be a core competence of bringing people into the organization. We have to be brilliant at getting people into our organization. In order to bring them in, we got to know who we are and why we are and what we are. So it becomes more of a fraternity sorority rush where we're looking for the kind of people that are going to thrive in my organization. And if you want to know who those type of people are, just go to your trainers in your contact center. If you don't have your trainers, your trainers that bring people that do onboarding, if you don't have your trainers meeting with your hiring people once a week, once a month, or rotate a trainer through the hiring, because I promise you a trainer can tell you within the first 20 minutes, and you should challenge them whether someone's going to make it or not. They can tell you right away whether someone's going to make it or not. I mean, they know it. They know it immediately because they know what it is they're trying to see. So we have to be brilliant at onboarding people into the organization, getting them into the company. And then once we get them into the company, we've got to immediately invest in them and kind of what our mission, purpose, and values are to make sure that they're connected to those, and that we're not only talking the talk, but we're actually walking the walk with our mission, purpose, and values. And then we need to begin to train them and get them up to speed and give them the skills and tools necessary, and then reinforce those, encourage those, continue to train them, continue to coach them, and coach them to being successful, right? Getting them to repeat the same things over and over again that they do well. And if I can get somebody up and running, there's a whole thing on reinforcement, right? On how do you reinforce somebody, right? So I want to reinforce people. I want it to be, there's three types of reinforcement, right? There's positive and negative reinforcement, right? Those are pretty simple, right? There's immediate or in the future, and then there's certain or uncertain, right? So most contact centers, have positive. Hey, listen, we're gonna offer a contest, and then this contest is gonna come up after 45 days. So that's positive. but it's in the future. And listen, the winners are going to get their names put in a hat, and somebody's going to get to go to TGI Fridays or to Six Flags. Well, that's positive. It's in the future, but it's uncertain. The reinforcement we need to have is positive, immediate, and certain. We need everybody to win. And so we've got tools around gamification, reward and recognition, and badges, and things that allow people to see success and leaderboards, to see the success the way they want to see the success, right? So you may be the kind of person that wants everybody to know you were successful. Somebody else may not want anybody to know. So we've got to recognize how people accept recognition. But the other thing we have to do is we also have to tell them that they're an expert. So we give them levels that they build up to. So now all of a sudden I'm a green belt or a black belt in empathy or listening skills or some sort of shipping or some sort of product knowledge. And so all of a sudden now I'm recognized and seen as somebody who's not only answering the phone every day, but I'm building skills. The organization recognizes that I'm building skills and building tools, and I've achieved goals, and I'm working through things. And I'll give you a great example. I mean, we are, we have some clients that, because we measure customer experience or we take customer experience data in, we have some clients that, that have some reps that have 20,000 perfect scores in CSAT. I mean, 20,000 perfect scores. Well, you know what? When somebody hits 10,000 perfect scores or 1,000 perfect scores, I probably want to celebrate that. If you're taking any sort of customer data, there's kind of the pantheon of customer words, right? So the pantheon of customer words are, I can hear the smile in their voice. You need to give Sally a raise. You need to hire more Freds, or you need to clone Cecilia. I mean, those are kind of the four. And so when a customer says you need to clone somebody, or you need to hire somebody, or you need to give them a raise, got to be careful with the raise ones, or I can hear the smile in their voice. You need to celebrate those, because those are special comments. Somebody's done something. They've made a connection at a level that we aspire to, that we want to happen. When those happen, we need to make a point of those. And then when you hit 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, we need to celebrate those legacy achievements, because if I'm at 900 perfect scores and you tell me I'm at 900 perfect scores, I may stick around for a couple more weeks to get to my 1,000th. Or if I'm playing in a team game, connection, contact center is a little bit like high school, right? I mean, you need at least one friend in high school. You don't need 7, but you need one, because you need one person to protect you from the bullies and the mean girls. You got to at least have one friend in high school to protect you. Well, I need to connect with somebody in the contact center. If I can make a connection with somebody, play on a team with somebody, maybe if I decide I'm going to leave, but I'm in this team game, and my buddies are helping me out, I may not want to get out of that game because I don't want to leave them. So maybe I stick around for a couple of weeks. If I stick around for a couple of weeks, maybe I stick around for a couple more. So there's so many different ways that we can use connection and this culture and bringing people on board and connect them to the organization to help us keep people around longer and, of course, be better at what they're doing.
Yeah, I think everything you just said, when I was hearing it, it kind of just made me think of things that I've crossed paths with in my career, and even people that I've worked with and my interactions with them around this idea that, sometimes you have a job just because you need the money, right? This job equals just a paycheck, and then I go, and then vice versa. The company treats you as, well, you're employee number XYZ, and I pay you to do your job, and that should be enough, right? And so with that dynamic happening on both sides, when they meet in the middle, you usually have not the best, most memorable experiences with what you're doing to positively impact those around you. And obviously, if you're customer facing, that part as well. And so you really have talked a lot about reward and recognition, right? And how those are drivers. And I haven't always seen companies embracing that. It's like, I pay you to do a job. That's your salary. That's how you get compensated. You should be lucky to have a job, or vice versa. I'm only here for the paycheck. So where does the reward and recognition come into play from your perspective, not only in the culture of embracing it, but the outcomes? What is it that you are seeing in the contact center when you use rewards and recognition in the right way? What happens in that outcome from the center, the output, and things like that?
So, I think it goes all the way back to, when you were a kid and you did well in school and mom or dad took your 100 and pinned it on the refrigerator. And that might have stayed on the refrigerator for a really long time. And, but you remember it because or stars, or you get stickers or stars or whatever you get. And I know we're in today's world where everybody gets a trophy for participation. I think that recognition and reward and gamification and those kind of things aren't designed to create more fun. They're designed to create more acknowledgement of the success and the improvement that an employee has. And so you put when an employee comes into your organization, whatever their season's going to be, your ability to promise them to say, listen, hey, we're going to help you be successful here. And we want you to be here for a really long time. But whether you're here for a short amount of time or a long amount of time, and again, we want you to be here for a long amount of time, we're gonna invest in you to help you be successful, and we're gonna watch that success. And we're gonna challenge you and help you grow, and you're gonna be better when you leave here with skills and tools that you can use maybe somewhere else in our organization, further in our contact center, or if you go on to be president of the United States. And so by implementing reward and recognition, the first thing that you have to recognize is that it has to be ingrained into what you're doing. It has to be something that you do on a regular basis. If you're sitting around trying to come up with a game or some sort of an idea or a contest, and that's next month, and then next month we're going to talk about the next month, it's never going to work. It's got to be a strategy and a plan that's put in place that covers everything and anything that's really important to you. So that usually starts with the organization's goals and directives or their KPIs. So if I've got KPIs in my organization that I'm trying to measure, and every organization has different ones, but everyone knows what they are. So the first thing about a KPI is that I want to KPI the KPIs, right? So I want to keep people inspired about the KPIs, right? I want the rep to be motivated to take a call at 2:00 in the afternoon when they're tired. I want them to have a reason to want to show up on a Monday when Mondays are the day that normally people leave. I want them to listen a little more carefully on a call because by them listening more on a call, there's some value or some advantage to them. So we take what's important to the company and we take what's important to the company. We figure out what those are. We train and coach using our technology on what's important to the company, and then we reward and recognize specifically what the company wants the outcome to be. And so when you do that, you start finding people doing something right. And when they do something wrong, they're not able to achieve the rewards and recognition that they want. So when we say to them, hey, listen, if you want to be more successful, you need to work on these 3 things, then they have a motivation to work on those 3 things because A, they're rewarded and recognized for learning, but at the same time, they're now working on the stuff that matters to the organization. And when you bring all those together, you've got a plan, you're implementing the plan, and you get results from that. If I've got 100 people and my average CSAT score is 4.7, I'm going to have some people that are over the 4.7. I'm going to have some people that are below the 4.7. I have some people that are way below the 4.7. I'm going to have some people that get 5s all the time, and they have a bad day, and and they don't get a 5 on that particular day. Well, is that a trend, or is that just one individual? Is that just happening one time? Well, it could be that person just got served divorce papers, and so they're about to spiral down. They're about to have a bad experience for a long period of time, or maybe they just got distracted for a moment, or maybe the person on the other end of the phone was just miserable and it didn't really have anything to do with them. So I want to be able to see bad scores come from a bunch of individual bad scores. Good scores come from a bunch of individual good scores. So I want to be working on all of those. I want to encourage or acknowledge a great day. I want to keep track of a trend that's on a bad day so that I can overcome it. So I'm looking at every transaction, every experience, and trying to see trends and trying to plug the holes where I need to plug the holes and keep them going when things are going really well. So it's a process that never ends, but it's also a process that you have to have a plan that goes, beyond a week or a month or even a year. You have to have a plan that lasts for a whole bunch of time and have a strategy in place and be intentional about it and be what we would call be on purpose about reward and recognition. And you immediately know in your contact center whether you have a plan that works or not. And if you don't have a plan that works, then you're doing definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. And I would encourage you that if your reward and recognition program is not driving performance, it doesn't work, and it's a waste of time. And you should do something else. Try something different.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are leaders out there, business owners, that they'll continue to still think that it is just one of those things, do your job, I pay you to do your job. But when it comes to this piece, like any shiny object, right, is if you don't use it well and you don't have a purpose on how you intend to use it and what you want as an outcome, then it's very easy to implement something new and then it doesn't work. And then it's easy to say, oh, well, this didn't work, so it wasn't worth it, or it's not worth my time. I know somebody else who did it and, it wasn't worth it for them. But I think you use the terms intentional, right?
Yeah. Intentional, on purpose. I mean, if you think about AI, right? You think about the whole concept on AI. AI is supposed to find things out and learn stuff that we don't know, right? That's what it's supposed to do. Well, when it comes to reward and recognition or culture, leadership, one-on-one coaching, training reinforcement, you don't need AI to know what it is you need to do. We all know what we need to do. We just don't do it, or they don't have a plan to do it, or they don't have the tools or the skills or the technology or whatever it is to do it. So, and I'm not saying that AI, I'm not poo-pooing AI. I think it's wonderful. But there's a whole bunch of steps that can be taken that just require some implementation and require some commitment. And it starts with, my favorite Herb Kelleher quote of all times. Was the former president of Southwest Airlines, and they asked him one time why Southwest Airlines was so successful, and he said it's really, really simple. We love our people love our customers, and when you have that much love going around, you can make a lot of money. And I don't think it can be said better than that. So you go, Herb Kelleher. So
yeah, well, it's really hard to have positive outcomes, happy interactions when you have unhappy people doing it. With that said, now obviously we focused a lot on the front line. We talked about supervisors, and there's just one piece as we shift obviously to the obvious big topic we've talked about for the last couple of years around the pandemic and how that's impacted things. But as a front end to prior to the pandemic, what are skill sets, attributes that you really found helped you find or have successful leaders in the frontline supervision or frontline leadership? And then now going into this remote world, have those people from your perspective still been successful? Was it a hard transition, or did you have to find new people that could now pivot to the new dynamics of the remote world?
Well, so I think you look at it again, kind of roses, daisies, weeds, right? So if I've got a big organization, I'm going to have rows, frontline leaders, daisy frontline leaders, and weed frontline leaders. And the challenge that most organizations have is that they look for people, right? Come work for us. We're all about people. If you love people, we like people. Why would you ever hire anybody that didn't like people? Why would you ever make them a manager? But you hire people that already have those skills, and so the problem is that you can't scale. You can't scale if you don't have great onboarding and great leadership training and great mentoring that occurs. And that's a culture thing, right? It's a culture thing that I get a leader, and that leader teaches other leaders. And I get rid of the bad ones. I get rid of the Darth Vaders. I don't let them stick around for a long time. It's a cultural thing of how do we treat people. So, a great example of leadership culture is that there's a culture concept of if you're if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, you're history. Contact centers have to run on time. So I want a culture of contact center leaders that run all their meetings on time. They're never late. Everything runs. They can. I mean, I even encourage them to have a meeting that starts at 7:01 and finishes at 7:31, because people need to be on time. So if I see the leaders sprinting to a manager's meeting to make sure they're in the room on time, then they understand contact center minutes. They understand that if I've got 10 people in a room and our meeting goes over by 2 minutes, I've just cost 20 contact center minutes that I can't control. So I want to build a culture that gets these leaders to understand and recognize it so that they can model the things that need to get modeled. Because and that's why the people that were on the front line that are now managers, that's why their competence can be so great, because they already know they know the answers, right? So if when you come in and you sit down and have a one-on-one with me, and I know that the skill of acknowledgement has to be there. When you tell me something, I acknowledge it, and then I turn around and go to business, or I acknowledge it, make a personal comment, and then transition it back to business. So I've got the ability to be able to do that. So I'm looking for leaders that can model it, but that can also make a connection with an employee. And the only way to make a connection with employees is to find out what they're doing. So it's the same skills, but the pandemic has changed it from the fact that, believe it or not, in order to be a frontline supervisor in today's world, you need to be a professional communicator. Now, hopefully, if you're on the front line, we're a business of professional communicators. But I've got to be able to have some sort of a way to in a short amount of time, either in a phone call or a Zoom call or a one-on-one meeting that happens less frequently than it did before, I've got to be able to connect with you. I've got to be able to encourage you, and I've got to be able to build and help you learn. Well, if I'm going to connect, I've got to be able to weave between the business and the personal. I need to know a little bit about you. So I have to be comfortable enough to find out a little bit about what's going on in your life. And the best way for me to find out a little bit about what's going on in your life is to be transparent enough to tell you a little bit about my life. So I think the pandemic has shifted from the people that might have been able to read body language to now I've got to be able to be a little bit better in the phone, or, I don't know whether to look at your picture or look up at the camera. It's very hard to keep track of what we're doing. So I've got to work a little bit harder. My listening skills have to be better than they've ever been, because I have to listen for, changes that allow me to pierce into those areas that I need to work on. And then I need to just, that's the culture. I just have to be a hard worker, because I need to over communicate. If I had one skill set that people need in the pandemic, that companies need in the pandemic, they need to over communicate. And when I mean over communicate, I mean tell them again, tell them a third time, tell them a fourth time, tell them a fifth time. And same way with training and reinforcement. And our tool allows you to just keep repetitively going back and quizzing and coaching and reinforcing and quizzing and coaching, because you just have to do it, because you don't have that time where I can sit across from you and do it.
Yeah, your over communication comment is so true, because we find that we've limited in many ways that in-person interaction, the water cooler talk, the going out for a meal together, whatever that is, to build that sense of community that happens. And when you have these people that are isolated in their home, I think you've said it best. It's been a paradigm shift, right? Of exactly how we work together, how we interact, how we train, how we onboard, how we communicate, and how do we leave the old world of what worked, and hopefully I can just copy and paste it. There are some things that have been disruptive, but it also has made us grow, right? It's made
every value organization has ethics and integrity, right? Well, now I've got these people working out of home. I need ethics and integrity more than ever now, because I can't even see them. I don't even know they're there. So all the things that pandemic's really offered a great opportunity, though, to build your culture and learn how to extend your culture as well. So there's certainly been some pluses from it also. So not pluses. Obviously, a lot of people died. I'm not making that comment, but there's a lot of things that have come from that. and a lot more investment in training and coaching than there's ever been before, which is a great thing.
Well, look, whenever there's something that's so disruptive that breaks what the norms were, change is always difficult. But from that is born out things that people learn how to do differently, better. They adapt, new things are invented. And with the pain and suffering and all the things that are going through, when we go back to just focusing in the contact center space, is how do we still have a sense of community? How do we invest in each other? How do we provide positive, memorable experiences to each other and to who we serve? And in doing that, hopefully we do find some silver lining, some positive things that we can take from it, and we can help each other to be better. And as you mentioned, this is just one chapter in our book, but hopefully when we go to the next chapter, we're better off than when we were there before, right? So with that said, we've had some great conversations around a lot of different topics. I just want to finish off on one thing personal, right? You wrote a parenting book. What got you to write that? And would you write another one? Are you writing another one if you're able to share?
So the parenting book is called 52 Things You Need to Know. So have 4 kids. When my daughter was 17, someone told me that once they turn 18, they quit listening to you. So for my daughter's 17th birthday, I purchased a 3-ring notebook. And every week for 52 weeks, I wrote her 52 things you need to know before you turn 18. And it was basically just a 1-pager. And I put a Bible verse in, and then like a famous quote from like Abraham Lincoln. And then I wrote a short paragraph that covered everything from, money, Jesus, boys, school, boys,
common theme there.
Politics, boys, so then I wrote that to her and I gave it to her, and then I had son and I wrote him one, and then I have a stepdaughter and stepson, so I wrote them one. So after I'd done this PowerPoint, so many of my friends were asking for it. I said, well, I'm a software guy. So I actually built an editor. So you can go online as a parent. You can buy my book, which gives you an editor, which shows you what I've written. And then you can customize it. And then you get a hardcover book that you can give to your child at their high school graduation or their college graduation. It's, you're giving them your wisdom, you're giving them your wisdom and your love. And it is, I think it's the greatest gift I've ever given. And it's just a really spectacular, special, really cool thing. And so it's actually not a book. It's more of a book that you can create your own hardcover book and give to people. And it's been just a joy to do. And, you can take my stuff or add to it. And it's been a joy to do. Really has.
It's definitely an innovative approach to that. It has a neat story. And then obviously the other aspect of it is you did it at the right time, because the last thing you want to do is do it when they're not willing to listen anymore. So with that said, Michael, it's been awesome to have you on the show. We're so happy that you were able to join. Now, of course, there's going to be people that want to connect with you. They want to learn more. They want to connect with your business, or maybe they want the product that you offer, right, for their business, helping them. How can they best connect with you?
Well, so there's 3 different ways to connect with us. I have a podcast called The Contact Center Coach, which I would encourage you to listen to. I've got 65 podcasts out there. They're all training on a lot of the areas that we talked about today. My company is proponisi.com, proponisi.com. And then obviously my email is mtamer@proponisi.com. And, reach out. We'd love to talk to you. Be a privilege to work with you. And I want to say I'm very grateful for you listening to me for the past hour. So it's been fun to talk to you. Thank you so much for letting me share some of our ideas and concepts with you.
Well, it was a pleasure having you, Michael. And obviously I've listened to you for more than an hour, only because I've actually watched your podcast episodes as well. Great content. So everyone in our audience, of course, you got to go follow and connect with Michael. Make sure to look at his podcast as well. Great content. I'm sure you'll be able to get some great information. And obviously his company and products have a lot of value from everything we've talked about, and obviously a lot of things they'll be looking at. So thanks so much for listening. Looking forward to our next episode. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye now.